Good morning and welcome to this virtual webinar on fast-tracking the labor market integration of people from Ukraine. My name is Justyna Segesh-Frelak and I will have a pleasure to moderate our webinar today. As you might know, since 2015, Europe has increasingly recognized the importance of swiftly validating refugees' skills and recognizing their foreign qualifications so that they can put them in use in local labor markets. Matching newcomers with in-demand jobs has been also gaining popularity. Then, amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, several countries went so far as to relax their travel restrictions and credential requirements to meet their need for essential workers. But at the same time, the rapid arrival of large numbers of newcomers, including the more than 4 million of people that have fled Ukraine, also increases the need for additional workers across numerous sectors, including, for example, education and healthcare. And here again, in order to facilitate their access to the labor market, a number of countries have simplified employment procedures. And now what we see are diverse policies that facilitate the timely employment of Ukrainians as teachers, carers, cultural mediators, or healthcare professionals. In addition, the ability of this group to rapidly access labor market and travel within the EU mean that temporary protection beneficiaries can theoretically go where they speak the language or feel they have the most opportunities. But we all know that entering the labor market is not always easy and not always fast. And not all new arrivals come with the skills and resources necessary to seamlessly secure employment. Women might also face barriers to accessing work due to caregiving obligations. Finally, because of these barriers, but also uncertainty over the length of stay in the EU, mean that many are actually prioritizing any job over the right job. In today's webinar, we will look at the different approaches to fast-tracking the labor market integration of newcomers from Ukraine. We will also discuss to which extent existing tools are suited to support this group. Finally, we will try to look at the innovative approaches, measures that can help them overcome the challenges that this group is facing. And I'm delighted to have a very strong panel today, panel of experts and practitioners who will share their respective views on labor market inclusion from different angles. We are meeting today in the framework of a project titled Sustainable Practices of Integration. It's called SPRING. SPRING is funded by Horizon 2020 program. In short, it gathers and shares the best available research and evidence on integration. And if you are interested in following our activities, we warmly invite you to join the SPRING community. You can do that by registering to the project's Join Us campaign under the link that is now posted in the chat. Finally, I have a very short note on technicalities. We invite you to post your questions in the Q&A function. We will collect the question and try to answer most of them towards the end of our meeting today. Without any further delay, allow me to welcome our first speakers today, Ms. Slawka Ilej, Head of Unit Governance and Coordination of European Labour Authority, and Mr. Matteo Matteini from Vitality Social Italy, who will set the scene for our discussions today. Slawka, the European Labour Authority seeks to support member states in protecting displaced persons coming from Ukraine when it comes to the labor market participation? And from your perspective, what are the main issues at stake when it comes to the inclusion of this group into the labor market? Please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning to all of you. First of all, thank you for the invitation and opportunity to speak at this webinar. And this is a very interesting and very good initiative you actually have. So as I'm coming from the European Labour Authority, let me just say one sentence about who we are. So we are a relatively newly created agency only 2 years ago to actually support fair and effective labor mobility across the EU. And since we were created, we are basically dealing with one crisis after another one. So after COVID, immediately now we are in this new situation. So I will speak from the perspective of this authority who is here to support the EU member states and citizens in really making the mobility across the EU fair and effective. Yeah, so with this very sad situation, of course, related to the Russian aggression, this which resulted with over 4 million and maybe even more refugees across the Europe, and of course this needed EU action, EU level action. And first important thing is that we could already see that there was a lot of immediate unity and interest to work together, which is in this area of refugees and migration, a really nice development. So already mentioned, the very immediate first reaction was the activation of the Temporary Protection Directive, which is enabling this displaced person to stay in a selected EU countries for initial 12 months. And this brings access to labor market and a range of rights, such as special protection for children, access to education, healthcare, and access to also social security, accommodation, and housing. Of course, that brings also new challenges. While the Temporary Protection Directive is de jure on a member states level, then de facto this also enables labor mobility for the citizens. Yeah, so they do not have labor mobility directly from the directive, but as they can choose in which country they will register for temporary protection. So the process of moving from one and another to another country, if there is a job, is not complicated. So de facto there is also labor mobility. So let me go into more what we as European Labour Authority, with our scope of actions of what we can actually do, what we decided is the priority. So we have been approached directly by the Commissioner Schmid, and we were asked to look where, from the labor market perspective, we could contribute, because there are of course many other players on the EU market who play the role here. So from our perspective, the main issue is the integration of this displaced person in the labor market under fair conditions, and of course legal integration. And also to enable these refugees or displaced person to have information and place themselves based on the jobs available, which is effectively this achieving fair and effective labor mobility. So from the numbers, which are not really precise, but we understand from the member states that while there are millions of people already placed in different member states, those which are officially employed and registered and as employed, those numbers are extremely low. Yeah, so it might be not exact estimate, but one of the numbers we understand recently that maybe only around 100,000 of these refugees are really registered as legally employed, which is extremely low. So where did we put our priorities? It's in two main strands. First, to to facilitate access to information for displaced person about their rights, about also some obligations, but about available jobs. Yeah, so first of all, to help them. And second is in the field of preventing labor exploitation and tackling undeclared work. So I would briefly say about each of these. So on access to information, of course, we try to help with a lot of information also in Ukrainian language, a lot of translations, dedicated campaign about rights. But what I would like to highlight is just an initiative announced last week, where together with the Commission, we are part of the EU Talent Pool initiative, which is run on EURES portal. And this initiative enables Ukrainians to job seeker to have access to EURES services and to have access to all jobs available across the EU countries. So this is still a pilot project, but it's very important also to see how this will work and if this will really enable this pool of potential workers to be to finding jobs easier. It's too early to say what is the real impact, but it's great to have such platform as EURES, which is supported by public employment services. And it's not only information about the job, it's also related support from public employment services for settling and understanding the job in a specific country. So then from the perspective of undeclared work, of course, we have the structure called Platform for Undeclared Work, which is actively working, exchanging information on what's going on in different countries and supporting each other in understanding how the moves of people is evolving. And then in addition to that, of course, we are supporting and encouraging specific also inspections in case of cross-border inspections, which are the scope of actions we can do to check this particular area of this group of people be potentially under the risk of undeclared work or even being under the labor exploitation. Here also there is many other actors, and I would just mention that we are part of what's called in the EU Common Anti-Trafficking Plan for persons fleeing the war in Ukraine, where together with other agencies as CEPOL, Europol, and EU Asylum Agency and Frontex, we work together in the field, each agency under their remit on trying to address as much as we can to avoid this risk. So to summarize, so we are really trying to provide the information, translations, and a pilot in EURES Talent Pool initiative. We really see a lot of potential there. And in the other field, supporting activities to prevent undeclared work. In addition to this, we also did a mapping of national measures in the field of labor mobility, which are there to support member states and other players to really understand what's going on in each country, what measures have been taken. So this is just the start of our initiatives. And I'm sure I will be able to say a bit more in the later stage. I'm trying to keep my timeline, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I hope we will have time to return to issues that you mentioned a bit later. I would like to turn to Matteo. As far as I understand, you have really long-standing experience in the area of fast-tracking migrants into the Italian labor market. What does it look like? And in the fast-tracking toolbox, what type of policies or practical measures we have that can be used?
Justina, thank you very much for inviting me here with such a very relevant panel of experts. I bring here the voice of a grassroots organization. Even if I work as a consultant for a public organization, multilateral organization, I would like to bring the angle of a small organization that work on the field. And Vitality Onlus is doing support and coaching for multicultural talents. It means we are complementary to those organizations that bring counseling and psychological support. We are working on their talents. Okay, we'll let them grow through our projects. And this is the core of my first intervention. Here is a clear provocation, and please take it as such. It's I completely challenge, even if I come from a 4-year leadership in a European project of fast track action boost, I completely challenge the notion of fast track, because we need a slow track. Okay, so of course, fast track is very important. It's to give them support, but the most important thing is a slow track, is to keep them a company looking for better solution in the solution they choose to live in this society they choose to live. I want to report a tiny single story, because single stories are very important. We started work with G. Is an initial of a name of a person. I wouldn't breach any confidentiality saying his name, from Western Africa, coming to Italy after 2 years of crossing over the Mediterranean trials, and he finally came. He was received in a reception program, and the reception program started to work and collaborate with job centers. I don't know if you know, but job centers in Italy are only responsible for 2% of the job placements, so it's so difficult. And under the principle of impartiality, they wouldn't provide any specific personalized service to migrants. Okay, so if you fit in the service that's already in place, it's okay. If you don't, they won't give you any personal support. So organizations should take care of it. Organizations are working under this national program, which is very successful. It's called, used to be called in 2017 SPRA, and then it's been changed and defunded progressively into 4 different stages from any government, from any color. And so now it's very depowered. And these guys came to us, and the challenge was to get him in a good position in our society. But the first possible solution given from the cooperative that welcomed him was provide him the first possible work available on the market due to his capacity, which was very little paid. In Italy, we don't even have a minimum wage. So we don't have a minimum salary. So you can pay as little as you can workers of unqualified origin. Okay, so the alternative was to place this guy in this position as a warden, as a scavenger, all these very, very uneducated, generally uneducated, little underpaid, dirty, dangerous and demanding jobs, the DDDs. Okay, so now we took this case and we worked with him, bringing up his real motivation in life, his real capacity, his real talents, and we brought him through a process of coaching a little bit longer to better him in a to bring him in a better position. And we find a couple of programs that were giving people like him with his profile, which were young, uneducated, because they didn't have any titles. So I heard about reconciliation of titles. We couldn't do it because he didn't finish his education. So it was none for our job market. So we took him through this program, and the organization had actually doing that, recognizing then his attitude, not his qualification, but his attitude was good, was perfect for a specific market, which is the IT. So this guy has been provided with a 6 months, only 6 months training program, which brought him from zero competencies in IT into a software development. So we brought him into this program, supporting him, and during this program, he obviously had to quit his previous job, which was very little paid and very dirty, dangerous, and demanding jobs. But doing so, he also wasn't able to send money back to his family in his origin country. So he had to choose that. And it was very difficult, and it was very difficult for us to support his choice, because at the end of this process, after a few months, his wife decided to leave him. Okay, he divorced. And it was very, very, very difficult situation for us ethically and for him personally. But he wasn't able to send remittances back to his family enough for his family to be satisfied, and his wife divorced. Okay, so it was very difficult. I'm sorry if you go too personal, but I have conclusions. And after the 6 months training, this guy was hired by a development company, a software house, as a developer, which was probably 10 to 20 times more remunerated than the previous job, and is in a stable position, is empowered, and is in a fantastic position in society. And we are keeping on providing and coaching how to sustain in this position for longer. So what does this story tell me? Sorry if I went too personal, but this story tells me a lot. So in a situation where job centers can't help very much, organizations should provide support, and organizations should change their mentality, because it's too easy to adapt and to conform to the basic mentality that third country nationals, migrants, and especially refugees should adapt to the bottom of the pyramids because they need a fast track. Okay, they should conform and should be grateful for what we're giving them, the bottom of the pyramid. And the bottom of the pyramid in some countries is very low. We still don't have a law for minimum wages. Okay, that could be very low. And we should tackle them fast or slow or intermediate. The journey should be appropriate for their inspiration, their capacity, their motivation, and we should work on that. So as a first lesson learned, I should say, I want to tackle the mentality that those people should be placed at the bottom of the pyramid because they are coming because of who they are. There are resources that should be exploited. There are technique as a coaching, as a business coaching, to elicit this capacity and to bring them to a better position. I think I'm running out of time, but I want to do a remark. Just tell me, Justina, just give me a sign. But I want to do a remark. There are cases I saw around Europe which surprises me a lot. In Berlin, I found a job center that actually was backing their program. After the social inclusion program, they were regularly backing those cases, each single individuals, to see how they progress in their career. And this was fantastic because these are very effective policies and is based on the ground of those people are resources, social economical resources for our country. Those people will bring, if we support their career, they will bring a better income, they are better taxpayers, they are better citizens, and we are all happy, and we can avoid social expenses and welfare. And as long as this is kept on the ground basics of social economical development as wealth, this could be a very interesting discussion. If it's still kept, every single case is kept on a humanitarian basis, it's completely ineffective. So the lesson I've learned is that fast track has to be mixed with slow track and long track. Because if we're not long tracking those people without support, risks at coming back to the situation where they were before and ending up in more social expenses, more social security, and more instability for the society. If I'm not too long, tell me, Justina, give me a sign. I didn't keep track of the time. I want to tell you one single last remarks, thank you, which is that we as an operator, you as job centers, we should keep track of the changes in the economical situation. Our training as a software developer for an educated person to educated person was possible because the job market is drastically changed. Half of our job market is based on technology, is digital. Those digital tech are not basing their requirement on the certification and the education. They are basic. They're hiring policies on attitude. So they don't care about what degree of education they have. The people have. They're caring about attitudes, because with people with the right attitude, they can train them in 6 months. So giant of technology, big tech, don't follow the same path that we used to know in recruitment. Okay, so just is for us to understand that there are those new enormous sectors of the market that can absorb talented people, and sometimes, you know, streams of refugees are young, are technology savvy, are technology capable, and they are the perfect target for those companies to hire. So we need to get ready to shake our habits and to change a little bit our vision on the job market and to help them to go straight to the maximum point they can reach in life, in professional life. Thank you very much. Sorry for being long. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Matteo. I think that your story about person from Africa in Italy was to some extent also universal because it shows struggles of I think many temporary protection beneficiaries in the EU. Thank you very much. To you and to Sławka, that was a very informative beginning of our webinar. Now let's zoom into the situation in 2 countries hosting the largest numbers of temporary protection beneficiaries in the EU, namely Germany and Poland. I would like to welcome first Mr. Sekou Keita, who works as a senior researcher at Institute for Employment Research Germany. Sekou, you have a long experience with researching the labor market integration of both migrants and refugees. Your institute has already conducted the initial assessment of the consequences of current displacement for Germany, for migration and for integration. What I learned also from your past reports is that Ukrainian migrants in Germany used to have above average qualifications, with around half of them having academic degrees. But what are the characteristics of the current group? What do we know already? And finally, what are the main opportunities and challenges when it comes to the labor market inclusion? Please, the screen is yours.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Justina, for the nice introduction and for the opportunity to participate in such a distinguished panel with experts and to discuss and learn from other experiences on this important topic. So I am, as Justina introduced, I'm a senior researcher at the Institute for Employment Studies, which is affiliated with the Federal Employment Agency. And since 2015, I would say we study a lot integration of refugees. So we had the first cohort, mainly composed of Syrians and people from the Middle East. And now we are looking also closely at the integration and the profile of Ukrainian refugees. So from our research, we know that integration in general, and especially labor market integration, is a multidimensional project. So a lot of aspects are important, and what I can say in a nutshell is we observe that the German government has learned a lot from past experiences. So there are many aspects that are now more favorable for this cohort of Ukraine, for the labor market integration of this cohort of Ukrainians, that compared to previous cohorts. So I will be a bit more specific. Let's start with the decision to seek protection in a different country. So obviously, this has been managed much more smoothly this time. So people were able to move to the country of their choice to seek protection without having fears of being deported, without having the fear of being rejected. And this is a first important aspect, because from previous cohorts we know that this was already a major selection mechanism that would exclude mostly women and mostly elderly, for example, who would be in need of protection but would be unable to get it because the access was difficult. So in Germany, as of now, the latest numbers registered over 1 million Ukrainian persons. So this includes Ukrainians who were there before 2022, but most of them arrived lately. So the numbers are a bit uncertain because we don't know exactly how many have already left, but we can say that there are a lot of Ukrainian persons in Germany. And so this cohort distinguished itself from previous cohorts in many dimensions. So first, there are over 35%, according to estimates, that are children or adolescents aged 18 or less. So these are obviously not looking for employment first. So here, schooling and access to education is priority. Among the adults, 71% are women, so mostly also due to the ban on immigration for men from the Ukraine. But this will also pose family reunification questions later, so we should always keep that in mind. And this composition of mainly children and women obviously brings specific challenges. So from previous cohorts, we know that the labor market participation of women is very dependent on access to childcare for their children. So this will be, I think, key to address this and provide a lot of resources. And in Germany, there was even before the arrival of the Ukrainian refugees, there was a shortage in access to childcare facilities. So I think this is here one of the key challenges. On top of that, we have the language question, in which language should the children be taught, and which curriculum should they follow, etc. Because here also the question is, how long will they stay? Is it worth integrating them in the German education system, or should they keep keep following the Ukrainian system with the idea of going back very soon? So here there are a lot of open questions. The question of allocation, where the persons can live, has been solved, in my view, also much better than previously, because previously the German government would allocate people based on some the Königsteiner key, they call it, which allocates a proportion of persons to each region. Now they have been much more free to choose and go where they have networks, where they have contacts. So this is also something that is much more favorable to labor market integration. And another important distinction is that the Ukrainian refugees now have been enrolled since June in the with the job centers and receive their social transfers from the Federal Employment Agency. And this is a very important distinction, because previously refugees would receive allocations from the Foreign Office, which is not connected to the employment agency. So basically they are treated as long-term unemployed in Germany, and this implies that they have access to all the training and the counseling, which will be very important in my view, because the German labor market is different from the Ukrainian in many aspects. So vocational training plays an important role. This is also this is something we have to keep in mind when we look at differences in education levels, because many jobs that are academic in Ukraine are attributed to vocational training in Germany. So you have to understand the different systems, and having this counseling will be very important. And so in this way, they will also have access to language training, which is, I think, key to long-term integration. It takes time. So the main insight we have so far is that integration takes time, but it's worth investing in the skills to guarantee a long-term integration, as Matteo already pointed out very clearly. So I think I will stop here, and we can come back to some specific points later.
Thank you very much, Seko. I would like to now turn to Andrzej Korkus, founder and CEO of EWL Migration Platform Poland. Welcome, Andrzej. Your migration platform has a long practical experience in terms of job matching, and particularly in recruiting Ukrainian workers. You have been also conducting numerous research, producing reports on the professional activation of temporary protection beneficiaries from Ukraine. So you can look at the situation from different angles. So what are in your opinion, the prospects for this group on the Polish labor market? What conclusions can we draw after this first months?
Great question, Justyna. Thanks a lot for that. Thank you for the invitation. Like you said, like we have a very long experience on activization of Ukrainian migrants. We used to work with labor migrants, so that they were, I would say, dedicated and ready to come to Poland to work. This situation was some kind of like completely new for us, and we like everyone, I think in Europe, were shocked with this, but it appeared that our experience of Poland in the working with the labor migrants was very useful. We, in history of our company, I think we managed to find jobs for more than 100,000 migrants, and most of them were from Ukraine. So our technology was, I would say, tailor-made to matching migrants with migrant jobs. So, and when this huge inflow of refugees came, first we're like everyone else, we're like trying to help them in some basic needs. So we're evacuating. We have offices in Ukraine, so first we started to evacuate our employees from there. And we evacuated more than 200 our employees and their families from Ukraine, and then we started to evacuate like everyone else. So we evacuated 1,500 people from there, and then we're supposed to, we need to get some housing for them. So we managed to start doing this, and we set up some kind of like process. Then we also shared it with some NGOs. So this process was used to getting houses for more than, I think, 5,500 refugees. So it's really, and it was based on our previous experience working with the labor migrants. And then, we, for example, we are like, for our employees, we run an onboarding center when we, in a way, we, set up their careers and set up their some kind of like residency. We train them to be able to work on the European labor market, and this outsourcing center was changed, where where weekly this onboarding center was used to, I would say, welcome some like 500 people, like labor migrants, and when this crisis started, we're accepting 500 people a day. These were like women with kids, so it was really like we're like working 24 hours a day. It was crazy. And what's like this onboarding center is working till today, and we managed to get some kind of like refuge and some kind of like place to stop over for 50,000 people. So it was like amazing effort for our team, and many volunteers that involved in that, But then, we learned after this like first weeks of crisis, also like many NGOs involved in that. So, we started to think what we can add, where we can add value, what is our like biggest experience in this process. And we figured out that, that the best thing what we can do is really to try to accommodate this like refugees with kids on the market, to help them in a way to find jobs and help them like to set up their lives temporarily or for good in Poland or in other EU markets. So we started to focus on that, and really like the EU came with like great help. This regulation that allowed Ukrainians to work like without any permit and in a very liberal way was like a huge help. And we saw that like generally we saw that like amazing, like huge numbers of people were able to find jobs very fast. In Poland, that is like some kind of, I would say, I don't know, like miracle. It was unprecedented so far. Like I think we had like 2.5 million migrants that came to Poland, something like 1.3, 1.5. There is no like strict estimate state in Poland. Half of them were kids. So we left with like 800,000 people who were like able to join the labor market. And till today, over 400, I think 30,000 people from this group were able, like they found jobs. So this is like amazing. You know, this is like, it means like, I think this group was really like motivated, and they were like very, for example, for Polish market, they were very close. Like the language barrier was very small. Also, the qualifications were some kind of like I would say perfect match with our labor market, but also the experience of Polish employers and Polish government, the Polish local government was really like crucial in this process, because we, for example, our customers, we had, I think 240 customers in Poland right now, and they were all accustomed to hiring foreigners, you know. So for example, they have all the procedures translated, you know, the Polish national insurance system, you know, so they have all the IVRs translated to Ukrainian, you know. So it was like very, very, some kind of like very, very helpful. And recently we did a very interesting study. We compared the level of like what we researched the refugees that found a job in Poland and in Germany, you know, and we compared these two groups, and we were looking for some kind of similarities and what was some kind of like what was like different in both cases, you know. And what we find out that in Poland, you know, like most of the foreigners in Poland are Ukrainians, you know. So, and most of the employers that were used to hiring foreigners, they were used to hiring Ukrainians. So what our what the participants of the this research said, that, you know, like the most important thing for them was, for example, that they could communicate in their working places in their like natural language. I mean, in their mother language, you know. So and in Poland, it was something like 60% of the people said that, the refugees said that they can talk in their own language at the workplace. So it means that all the procedures were translated to the Ukrainian. They have, very often they have some Ukrainian team leaders or Polish team leaders that that spoke Russian. And the second thing that was very, very interesting, it was that they said that for them, I think the second most important thing was the fact that the future employer, they were able to support them with some kind of housing, you know, or help them to solve this issue. So these were like the two main things that I would say arose from Poland. And also what I think Seku said, you know, that the crucial thing, especially for women, and it's like 97% of the refugees that came to Poland were women with kids, was there's some kind of way to solve this kindergarten problem or schooling problem. And Polish government have some kind of strict rules for running kindergartens, but after this refugee crisis, you know, they lowered them down especially for you know, starting up these kindergartens for refugees, you know. So also there were some initiatives, amazing NGOs that really like went into this, and they opened up some kind of, you know, like small kindergartens. Sometimes the employers even opened up kindergartens. We have like an amazing employer, amazing customer from Romania. He just, you know, like did some kind of like activity center for the kids of their employees. You know, he did like, you know, like some kind of like on this all-inclusive holidays. You know, so the women were going to work and they were leaving their kids there. So this was like really incredible. So thanks a lot, Justina.
Thank you. Thank
Took
you.
me a bit too long.
It's fine. Thank you very much. I think it's important what you are saying, that we need to solve this main challenges and not only think about work, and that the success is when you, or it was the case of Poland when the package was offered, but that it was housing, solving some care challenges. But I was also surprised to read in your study that so many of them are actually able to use Ukrainian in the workplace. So that's, I think, something exceptional for Poland. Thank you very much. Let's us now take a step back and actually look at lessons learned in the context of 2015-16 arrivals, but also the developments around COVID-19 pandemic. I would like to welcome Ms. Eva Westlund, who represents Swedish Public Employment Services. Eva, Sweden is one of the pioneer countries when it comes to so-called fast-tracking the labor market integration. As far as I understand, you currently offer a number of fast tracks ranging from social scientists, social workers, preschool teachers to healthcare professionals. So what was the rationale behind introducing these initial schemes back in 2015-16, I think? Did you manage to actually put newcomers into work and address labor market shortages?
Well, thank you, Justina, and thank you for inviting me. Yes, by now we have quite a lot of good experience of the fast track method. And as you said, we currently offer fast tracks in a variety of professional areas. And it's important to underline that the professions offered within the fast track are all professions where we have a shortage of labor and a demand on the labor market. And why did we start? Well, we all know that it's important for the society and of course for the public employment service to meet up newcomers early to take advantage of their experience and educations and skills. It's a win-win situation, both economically and socially. The society is a winner, so is the labor market and the employers, and of course the individuals. And if we don't meet up, people could end up in long-term unemployment instead of filling gaps of shortage. Well, the method we use is a chain of activities. The newcomer skills are validated, and then certificates and diplomas are translated, and there is a professional competence assessment. And then, if needed, vocational education and training, or academic education arranged by relevant universities. And the education is combined with internship, and the student gets support in learning Swedish parallel. And this fast track method and each track is supported by our social partners and arranged in cooperation with our social partners. It's really a strength, and we learned that to have trade unions and employers organizations also to confirm the persons are employable afterwards, after this chain of activities. So collaboration is so important. And after the COVID-19 pandemic, when restrictions were dropped, there was a great demand on the labor market in Sweden, an increasing demand. And all types of skills were asked for. And of course, many employers hope to find needed competence and skills among the Ukrainians coming to Sweden. And some of them found each other since Ukrainians quickly get work and residence permit based on the Temporary Protection Directive, which helps. But quite a few employers wanted to reach out only to the Ukrainians. And there are no changes of responsibilities for the public employment service in Sweden. And as we heard from Poland and Germany, we still have the same assignment and no special, like Poland and Germany, they adjusted. That's what I heard. But Sweden have not adjusted the assignments and not treating the Ukrainians separately. So you might ask, would the fast track be something for the newcomers from Ukraine as well? Well, yes, it could be. But today, since we did not have made any adjustments, there are still practical and legal issues not solved, not yet. So to support the newcomers from Ukraine, we have added general and specific information on our website, translated into Ukrainian and Russian. We can also pay for diplomas and certificates to be translated, and we can give guidance support. In some cases, we can offer subsidized work, but there are special requirements that need to be met in that case. So, but again, the overall fast track method is not possible to offer the Ukrainians today. We know the method is quite successful and an efficient tool to get newcomers into work. And it's also interesting to see that the method attracts both female and male job seekers. So we continue to try to remove or at least minimize obstacles identified for the newcomers who has residence and work permit based on the decree. And this is why I think this meeting like today is very important, to learn from each other and see how did you solve the different challenges and issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eva. Let's hope that fast tracking, the traditional fast tracking, will be soon available for persons from Ukraine. Matteo, I have a second short question to you. I think you partially even answered it in your scene setting. It's about your past work. You mentioned the Action Boost project focused on women. Today we are also to some extent focusing on this group when it comes to temporary protection beneficiaries. Can you give us some more insights on these lessons learned? Are they applicable to the current situation? What I took from your first intervention is that slower is better than faster, and at the same time that we should look around and see how the labor market is developing to find good niches for refugees. So please, if you have anything to add, please share with us.
I have a lot of things to add, just stop me when it's too much. And thank you very much for this question, it's very interesting. And I'm very glad to intervene after Eva, because I wanted to report something very interesting from Stockholm. I manage a network of European cities that actually were trying new methodology for fast track, and we took great inspiration from Stockholm. They have a method, a part of the composite method Eva shown is called Swedish for Professionals, that combines language and work skills. So it's very efficient because in a short period of time, you teach those people, your beneficiaries, the language they need at work and the work itself. So for some profession, it's fantastic, and is applicable on basic work profession like cooking or cleaning, or high-level profession like high-level education, like even scientists and professionals can be treated with the same thing. It's very, very interesting. So we try to apply it in different cities, and it was successful in Berlin and Milan. So we actually adapted this method for our context and created different curriculum, but fast and based on the mix of language and skills. This was successful. The other thing I would like to point out now is the project that Sweden took from Berlin, which is called the Neighboring Mothers. And obviously our project was based on the exchange of practices. What worked in a place was transferred and adapted in another place. So there is no such a one fits all. It's impossible to take something and bring it in another place and should work perfectly the way it was. No, you need an adaptation plan, but this adaptation is only possible if city cooperates. So we have networks. There is Eurocity here, I saw in your presentation. There are several networks of city already existing that can facilitate this process of mutual learnings. So what Stockholm learned was the neighboring mothers. And the neighboring mothers means persons of the same ethnical origin, language, and possible culture that welcome newcomers from the same origin. And this is very, very fast tracking and is the preamble for a job and social inclusion. It's at the beginning of everything, but it's a wild accelerator of results. So when you make them feel included, they accelerate also their self-empowerment and their capacity to access the job market. They should overcome also cultural barriers, because from some country of origin, women at work won't be possible. So we need to use the knowledge of those people already residents here to encourage them to make this passage, okay? And when this happens, the track is very fast to the labor market, but you need to work on cultural issues. So as you probably you're familiar with Professor Hofstede philosophy that tell us how the cultural distance is a burden from newcomers in new country, new society. So, and for example, power distance is a huge obstacles for people. You know, there are women that think that the labor market is not for them. They cannot talk to the authorities. They cannot talk to job centers, wouldn't do that. If other people that came in the country before them explain this is possible in this new context, they do. So this is very successful. So what I think is very successful in Sweden, I work with, with Stockholm, Berlin, Belgrade, Milan, Vienna, Madrid, and a lot of other cities, but I was surprised, and I reported very, very eagerly the success we achieved in Stockholm, because before the end of the project, Stockholm City accepted and funded our new approach as a standard operational method of the city. Okay, so something which is born within a project has become a standard procedure and be funded from the city itself. This is very, very interesting for us, because for European Union is the ultimate goal is to make the policy, experimental policy, successful. But let me do a last remark. This wasn't possible in Milan. Even if we took a very interesting shot at the Italian for Professionals that been translated into professional language and cooking, it wasn't possible to establish with like a local policy in Milan. And this because the authority didn't have the power to fund it, okay? To me, this is a very, very important lesson learned. So I bring you back to 2017 when we started the project. I started to analyze the city programs, the city that were into the partnership programs. And I find out that the city of Stockholm were acting under a Stockholm 2030 agenda. So they were envisioning ahead 20 years, okay, almost 20 years. And the Milan city plan was the DUP that looks further for 1 year. So we have 1 year program in a city and a 20 years program in another city that set up the vision of the city. In the city of Stockholm 2030, there was several times mentioned the word inclusion, diversity, and there was a legal possibility for even cities to apply into a wider vision and a wider scale policy. For Milan was so difficult, even with even if the policy itself, the experimentation was successful, to link the experimentation to a local funding. So we have a best practice in a place that worked, but wasn't funded, and a practice, a good practice that was experimented in Stockholm and was funded after. And this is very important because we need to provide, cities of a vision. Those cities who has a vision that stems from where they are and stretches for where they want to be. It's very easy to bring policies into it. If you don't have this vision, you always struggle with local policies, with local legislation, and with changes of scenery in political setting. So this is a lesson I've learned. There are many others, but I leave the stage for other speakers. So if you want, I come back with other remarks.
Thank you very much. And I really like that you highlighted the importance of actually diaspora. Yeah, you didn't use the word diaspora, but migrants, people who came earlier. I think that's critical when we are discussing the current displacement from Ukraine. Thank you very much for this. I would like to return to Germany and Seku just for a second. So based on your experience from the past, what support measures are important for successful labor integration? You mentioned the care, kindergartens as a key for in case of this group, but what would you like to add? Because we have already heard that no size fits all solution exists.
Yes, exactly. So I think many aspects have already been mentioned by previous interventions, and so I would just like to highlight one tension that is maybe becoming visible here. So it's the trade-off between integrating fast into the labor market and taking the time to build the right skills. And I think this is an important trade-off for policy. And I think at the center of this trade-off is the question of heterogeneity, acknowledging that migrants have different profiles and need different timelines and need different types of support. And this is, I think, the main insight we have learned so far. So let me be a bit specific here. From the cohort that arrived between 2013 to 16 from the Middle East, there were many refugees that had been exposed to extreme violence. So they needed psychological support, for example. So in this case, I think they needed time and also stability and security, to settle down and build from a solid base. And within this group, you have different profiles. You have persons who are very eager to learn and learn fast and can learn for a long time. You have other people who are eager to go quickly into the labor market to also support their family, stay back home. And we have to keep in mind that the working place is also a social place. So for some people, integration works better if they get the social contact, the exposure in the workplace, and this would also be very conducive for language acquisition. And giving different profiles the opportunity to take the path that is best for them, I think that's the main insight, and not this one size fits all. And the role of diaspora has also been raised. I think this is very important. And here we have to ask, what is the role of diaspora? I think one of the main roles of diaspora is to provide information. So help newcomers navigate the new system, learn, okay, what are the jobs that are worth trying, what are the skills worth learning, how do you navigate the whole social system, the cultural values also that are important in the workplace, all these things. And giving this in one way or another to groups that have low, small diaspora, I think it's also central. And for people who enter fast the labor market, I think it's good for some groups because of the reasons we mentioned, but it's important to always give the opportunity to keep learning and keep improving the skills and not get stuck in low entry jobs. Yeah, I think I don't want to be too long because many things have been said, but I just wanted to address this trade-off a bit.
Thank you very much. I think that's the core of our discussion today. We will now look at the current approaches, and I'm really happy to have a representative of City of Vienna today. Last but not least, let me introduce Ms. Birgit Wachter-Wallner from Municipal Department Integration and Diversity. Birgit, your department is working in close cooperation with the Vienna Employment Promotion Fund on fast tracking of labor market integration programs for Ukrainian kindergarten pedagogues. Could you please tell us a bit more about the initiative? Why did you decide to focus on this particular sector, but not others? What have you learned so far?
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm happy to be with you this day. And I'm, as you said already, I'm working at the Municipality of Vienna in the Integration and Diversity Department. And in last March, when we saw that the Ukrainians coming to Vienna, we noticed, as all the other countries, that there are a lot of females fleeing to Austria. And of course, we noticed that there are a lot of persons with educational skills working in the Ukraine before as teachers or as kindergarten pedagogues or in other social fields. So what did we do? We also realized a couple of weeks afterwards that in the kindergartens and in the schools, the children, they have to be admitted that they need also some support with in the Ukrainian language. And even if there was a parallel system, a lot of children were also still educated online and took part in the schooling system in the Ukraine. We had to find a solution to address those pupils in the children in their mother tongue in order to give them more orientation and also to support the communication between pedagogues and children. And so we tried to match the Ukrainians in Vienna, already settled down, more or less settled down in Vienna, with the needs in the educational system. And as my colleague before, Sekou, said, to give them a certain kind of arriving point. So to give them to support the social contacts. And we found several kindergartens in Vienna who were ready to give them a chance, to give the women a chance to take an internship in their kindergartens. And in parallel, we organized German language courses because some of them, they know German, but a lot of them not enough, of course. How should it be other in Austria than in the other countries? And so we start in summertime. We started with an internship for 30 participants, for 30 persons in kindergartens. And in 2 days a week, they were integrated. They could do a practical work. And in other 2 days, they could learn German in German courses. But as you all know, there are much more problems beside, because a lot of them, almost all of them, are single mothers. And we had to find places for the children, childcare places. And we also found out that it is not that easy to be part of a kindergarten team and not to have enough knowledge in the language. So we had to find a solution with the kindergarten and with the pedagogues to find a solution to support them on different levels, because all those experiences those women brought into the kindergarten additionally had to be coached and supervised in a certain way with the pedagogues team and also with the children. Many of the women went back to Ukraine for a couple of weeks, came back with traumatic experiences, with traumatic pictures, and as you already said before, there is a difference to the situation in 2015 because it's quite close. The problem is quite close, and the fears are even more close, and you have to meet the challenges of traumatism in another way as with the group in 2015. And now we are, as you said before, we are working in a very close cooperation with the Vienna Employment Promotion Fund to find a way to give them a possibility for nostrification, for a quick and as fast as possible nostrification of their diplomas. As many of you said already before, to screen their qualifications is not that easy because the system for the schools and the profession of kindergarten pedagogues is quite different than in Austria and in the other European countries. To screen their qualification, to help them, to support them as good and as strong as possible in the orientation, what is possible on the Austrian labor market with their diplomas. Is it possible to work in a kindergarten with a university diploma or not? But on the other way, to support them on a psychological way, to support the team in the kindergartens in a psychological way, and to give them the opportunity with a so-called stipendium, what means to give them more money than they would receive in the being unemployed. So to do a job training with practice. But of course, already said before, there is a lot of problems on governmental level because the policies are not clear now. What is possible for the Ukrainians? Which policy is enrolled? And so, really, to give them on a multi-level way the support to get as fast integrated in the labor market as possible. But I think most important, to give them the time as long as they need and not to put them under additional pressure.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Related to this, I have another question regarding your activities. I learned that Vienna, city of Vienna is created a database, Skills for Vienna, also targeting the temporary protection beneficiaries from Ukraine. Does it help or will it help in job matching or fast tracking?
Yes, in the first weeks and months, it was very useful because we got the information from the people from Ukraine about this was really focusing on the educational and psychological diplomas and educations. But now this database is more or less integrated in official databases from the Labor Market Agency and also from the Vienna Promotion Fund. I think it got more structured. But for the first overview, it was very, very important to get information as soon as possible and give the people a certain kind of orientation, of fast orientation, where to move on.
Thank you very much. Andrzej, I would like to return to Poland with you for a second. We've been discussing the developments or adaptations in the education system in Austria. I know that the Polish regulations were also adapted to allow applying Ukrainian assistance of Polish teachers easier. There are some provisions when it comes to healthcare professionals. Similarly to other countries, what is on the paper might sound easier than practical implementation. So what does this acceleration process look like? Or maybe instead of focusing on highly formalized sectors like healthcare, we should think about other type of jobs, other sectors to better match labor market needs with the profile of people coming.
Thank you, Justyna. Great question. So, I mean, you know, the first research we did, it was like shortly after the invasion and this huge inflow started. We researched what are like the professions of the refugees that came to Poland, and we find out that I think the biggest, like I think it was something like 11% of the people who we asked, there were some kind of like teachers or kindergarten teachers, you know. So, and when you compare this with this 800,000 kids that came to Poland, it was, in a way, it was some kind of like obvious to ease the I would say untied this strict regulations we have concerning like running the private kindergartens and preschools. And it really worked well. I mean, we are involved in many groups of like entrepreneurs and NGOs, and I know at least of, I think, 12 kindergartens that were made from the scratch by people who never did this before, you know. And of course, probably this, we don't know, but you know, probably that they are not that perfect as, you know, like kindergarten run by people who are super experienced, but the staff over there was like so involved. I mean, there were like people who like put their hearts into that, and with the like amazing people that came from Ukraine and the school teachers or these kindergarten teachers from Ukraine, they really, I mean, I was once at this kindergarten, so the like atmosphere was like amazing, you know, like it was like really very touching. So this was definitely one great move that and it happened. I think it happened in 1 month after the refugee crisis. We, you know, Polish government, I think a year or 1.5 years ago, implemented this ease, like some kind of less strict regulations when it comes to employing and nostrification of these medical diplomas for nurses and doctors. And it was, I mean, right now it works quite well. We see on the data that we have more and more, like right now there are like thousands of nurses and medical doctors that are working in Poland, but it was like it was a tough process. We were also like involved in that, and we saw that there were like a lot of tensions between the some kind of like Polish associations of doctors and the government, you know. So this process was, it is like you said, it's very regulated area, and it was it wasn't that smooth. Another what we experienced before, there was some kind of like huge move, and a lot of NGOs started to do some kind of like, we call it like matching the gap, you know. So we have very experienced and very professional refugees, and they usually have some kind of like one thing they need to fix to work in their profession, you know. And for example, this is some kind of like professional language, you know, or they need to learn the professional language. They know, for example, English, or they know Polish, or they know German, but they need to learn some kind of like professional language in their field, you know. And we saw that there were like at least like 3 initiatives that they were working on this especially. So for example, like you know, like English for carers, or German for some like drivers, you know. So like these were like very smart initiatives. And also another thing is this recertification, you know, of I think Seku was talking about this, that a lot of like vocational like this manual jobs, they need some kind of recertification in Europe, you know. So, and we see that the certification system in Ukraine is slightly different. There are already, like there were before war, there were like few institutes that were doing the certificates that that are also honored in EU, but there were like, for example, we saw that, I know, like some simple jobs, for example, forklift drivers, you know, so they need to have some kind of like special certificate to operate in the EU warehouses, you know. Then for example, we had case also with welders, you know, so also this welding certificates from like the ways being done outside of the EU, it's slightly different than in the EU, you know. So, and this took, for example, a 3-day training or 3-day training with the exam, you know, and they were able to do like, this is like a highly needed job in Poland, in Germany, in Czech Republic. So they were able to really earn good money and support their families, support their country. And so this was like some kind of like very smart and quickly arising initiative that we saw.
Thank you very much for these examples. Before we answer questions from the audience, I have one more like a reality check, I would say, to you, Slawka. We've been discussing the fast tracking measures, but what we all also see in case of this group is that many people are pressed or tempted to accept work without a contract, or end up in an exploitative situation. What you or what the European Labour Authority has observed so far, and what are the countermeasures that you initiated? If you could elaborate a bit on that, because like if we've been discussing quality job, but if so many actually end up in undocumented work, that's a huge challenge.
You know, thank you. First of all, also thank you to other speakers, because you are bringing much more concrete evidence from either regions, cities, countries, while I was really trying to provide a little bit high-level overview from the EU level, which then is missing that really specific stories, and that's great that I could hear those. Yeah, so as it was demonstrated by all other speakers, that there is an issue of specific composition, yes, of this group explained by several speakers. And then this is also due to the other obstacles related to, let's say, childcare, language, and other barriers, quite vulnerable group to potential accepting undeclared work, or, you know, like without contract, and being potentially then exposed to labor exploitation. So I will be maybe just summarizing also what has been said. And this risk we see as the highest risk, which was there from the start. So huge inflow of people who don't understand exactly how the market in these countries work, maybe don't speak the language, maybe don't get the right information. So that's the highest risk. And on that, as mentioned briefly, that good quality information in Ukrainian language and the right explanations, a simple language, it's what we could see as the immediate measure needed here to really get them the message to people on warning them about the risks of undeclared work. And there, I know specific actions are taken, of course, at each national and city level, but from our side, this was also at the EU level and coordinated and providing also a lot of translation. So I can also say something very specific. So we have what we call translation facility. And since this Ukrainian crisis, we have been helping any request from official sector bodies, which mean ministries, labor inspectorates, public sector entities, for translating specific documents to Ukrainian. So this is the service we provide, and we really had a huge request for that. And especially those translations were related to providing the information about how the labor markets work in different regions, countries. And I think this was a big of a help. And then the second aspect after the, let's say, the risks and the basic information out there is the job matching. Yeah, and all of you mentioned job matching either in region, city, or a country, and those are really great stories. So at the European level, I mentioned this talent pool initiative, which maybe now I can, if I have 1 minute, I can explain it a bit more. So the European job portal EURES, to which all public employment services have access, and thousands of companies have access to find jobs, have been now open to Ukrainian, including having it in Ukrainian language, to enable them to find the jobs which are matching their skills, and enabling with this also support of public employment services, relocation, and even financial support. So this is again a very specific initiative which we hope can also mean an opportunity. And not speaking also about the, let's say, that the negative side, what are the opportunities here is to address also specific labor shortages in regions and countries of the EU. And as other speakers mentioned, these refugees came, let's say, majority female, certain profiles. And when you look on also, let's say, the EU overview of labor shortages, where, for example, we published a report end of last year. So you can see immediately that it's not a huge gap between the skills mentioned and the shortages on the market. And a lot of shortages are also in, let's say, maybe majority female type of jobs. Even if I don't want to sound like, that this should not be, but that there are special types of jobs where maybe this group can easier find a job. And this involves healthcare, medical assistance, social care. In this group, there are huge labor shortages, but also for higher education in almost all countries, there is significant shortages in IT skills and all the IT digitalization related services, from all the way from programmers to web and developers. And this could be maybe through this understanding the shortages and through initiatives at national country level, but also hopefully the EURES level, also an opportunity for European countries to address labor shortages, which are clearly there, and which also with numbers indicate that only through intra-EU mobility with EU citizens, there seem to be not enough of skills to be relocated to fill the shortages. So the inflow of third country citizen, in this case Ukrainian citizens, could actually be maybe also this type of opportunity, and could help and benefit both sides. Of course, this displaced person in their current situation, but also regions and countries to address their shortages.
Thank you very much, Slauka. Actually, there is one or two questions to you in the chat regarding the talent pool. Which countries participate in the pilot phase, and do you know which will be part of the pool in the future? I assume that you explain well how it works.
Yeah, would you like me to react straight away?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
So the talent pool initiative at this stage is a pilot. Yeah, so pilot means that it's open to the Ukrainians, and they have access to all job offers in the portal. So this is not limited. Yeah, so they have access. They can upload a CV, and they can search, and they can be approached by employers from all regions, all countries, effectively. It includes EEA, actually, not just EU. What is limited at this stage is the direct support tools, which means that public employment services, local EURES support tools, where still we have only a few countries who are currently immediately actively participating, but we hope that that will increase as the initiative will grow, because it has been just literally announced last week. So I think it's still less than 5 member states who are actively providing this support, and we hope, of course, that this will help. Yeah, I can put the link into the
yes, please.
Thread. And basically, it's matching tool also in as EURES, that interested job seekers will upload their CV, provide their skills, and then they will be matched with available jobs, or they can also search actively based on country, region, type of job, and they are able to outreach. There is over 4 million jobs in EURES in average on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you very much. Matteo, there are two questions to you, I suppose. The first one relates to the issue of minimum wage. I will read it aloud now. Even if Italy has no minimum wage salary regulation, we have collective labor agreements for almost every professional work, which set the minimum salary per hour. It is also a matter of bringing employers to apply the labor rules. So yeah, how to work with employers to ensure the quality work.
Well, thank you, Giovanni, for this question. Is quite a spiky question. It's difficult to answer. Of course, everyone is talking about fair and legal jobs here. We are not tackling the problem of illegal jobs, exploitation, gang mastering, and even slavery. Because of course, so mostly in the border countries, those big inflow of people, migrants, and illegal entries to the country are also a big target for the local illegalities. And I cannot answer this now because there is a huge national debate about how to overcome these huge illegality sectors in some fields like agriculture or building companies. And I actually don't know if this is the case to open this, but this is an open issue. I don't have the answer, and I don't know how to bring employers to comply with regulations. I thank you, Giovanni, for this question, but I really can't have a recipe to share with you now. Sorry. The other question is related to an entrepreneurship issue.
It's like how to better support this group. I assume that you have experience in this area as well.
This is very important matter, because as the person, I don't know who's remember, Danny, as Danny pointed out, a lot of those person have qualification. And if you think about the migrants as people that undertook a personal journey, that invested in themselves already, those capacity and this propensity as risks could be utilized in their work, and these could end up in their own businesses. And this is so often the case, but we don't have specific program for them to grow and to flourish with their own businesses, to bring value to the community. We had a 3 years program, but again, was funded by the European Commission, was an Interreg Central Europe program, and we provided a platform for them to get free services and free contents on how to set up a business and how to run a business. This is not enough. You need, as Danny says, a specific individual coaching, but this costs, as sometimes they don't have the resources to access it. So we need to find a balance between the what we expect from them after finishing this training, which is a better outcome, producing resources, and creating wealth for the community, and what we want to spend at the beginning. So if we are aware of spending, of supporting them, providing them coaching activities, I'm pretty sure that most of them can be successful in business and can be individual professionals. But this has to be a choice that the policymaker do.
Thank you very much, Matteo. I would actually like to follow up on the first question on the relationship and engaging with employers, with the private sector, because it's not only the issue of salaries, but also the attitudes on the side of potential employers when it comes to employing the refugees and migrants. And I'm looking at you, Andrzej, because you represent private sector yourself, actually, like how to attract more employers, especially SMEs, to engage with this group.
So, I mean, like entrepreneurs, they will always find a way, So, I mean, the best, for example, what happened during this crisis, when during like few months we were able to welcome more than like 2 million people, that was like unbelievable. So the help, in a way, it was some kind of like decentralized. So there was like a lot of private initiative. Before war, there were like already 1.3 million Ukrainians living in Poland every day, So like I said before, I think this was like the most important factor. One thing, it was like the Polish entrepreneurs, they really, we were like touched, like really touched by this, I mean, I was like personally touched. We had like 2 big offices, like I think nearly 50 people working in Kharkiv, and this 2 office, for, the second day of the war, I got picture from my friend, my like dear friend. I worked with him 7 years. He's living in Kharkiv, and he was like hiding with his family in in basement for like 2 weeks, and he sent me the picture of our office when I was like, walking there like many times with them. And, there was like a rocket that landed in front of the office, it didn't blow up. It was like, it was like like, you know, get into the street like some kind of arrow. So I mean, you know, the motivation was incredible. I mean, and what I mean, we had before war, we had very liberal regulation when it comes for hiring people from Ukraine, from Belarus, from Moldova. But you know, when the war started, it was like really, I mean, it was really like brave that the government really like lowered all the some kind of like regulations. You know, it was time when there was like COVID was really strong. I think we had like daily something like 20,000 cases, and to access Poland, you need to have tests or vaccination, and you know, they take everything down. I mean, they took this risk concerning this really tough situation, and we were accepting people to Poland. I think the border was crossed till today. 7 million people crossed the border from Ukraine, and I think it was something like 3 million people in the first month, something like this. So it was like unbelievable. So less regulations. This is what every like what went the best. It was like deregulating stuff. You know, the government deregulated the way you can run the kindergarten. It's, you know, Poland already, our educational system was trained before, you know, and we accepted, I think, in this the first half a year, I think 160,000 kids from Ukraine joined the Polish educational system. You know, this year, I mean, this semester, this winter semester, I think we have 140,000 kids that are already in the system. You know, so I mean, 140,000 systems successfully managed to go to the next phase of the education in Poland. So this is like really amazing. And with like in a way, in an area of employment, again, like the regulation really worked. I mean, we became even more liberal. I mean, right now you can employ like a Ukrainian refugee with a PESEL, you know, which is some kind of like national ID, which is like very easy to get. You can get it online, you can get it in the app, you can get it really straight. And it's really, I mean, we are employing right now refugees, I think, in 5 or 6 European countries. And really in Poland, it's like really very smooth. I mean, the smoothest way. For example, recently we had like we were supporting a group from refugees, I think in Berlin, and it took them, I think, 2 weeks, you know, to get this like registration number that allowed them to start working. So again, you know, we believe, I mean, we always believe that, you know, if you teach someone to fish, you know, you don't need to give them fish. So this is like the idea of how we work on our platform. And also we set up a foundation that supports migrants in, I would say, becoming self-made on the new labor market, you know. And this is what we focus. We focus on, this is what I mentioned before, closing these little gaps. For example, some short language trainings, or this recertification, or some kind of like even, you know, Q&As, you know, how we have amazing people, really amazing migrants. We had a guy who was working for 2 years as a courier. He was delivering packages to I would say learn Polish, and then after 2 years he passed some kind of like recertification exam for like a medical doctor. You know, he was an educated medical doctor in Ukraine. So, and he was like sharing his experience how he did it. You know, so really like. And this is like one side, they're like entrepreneurs and like the people like employers, but on the other side, the employees, you know. So also they just, I mean, they're really like, they have so much drive and so much motivation. So if we will just take away some kind of like obstacles, they can, you know, they will be really well off they can really make their lives.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I have two very short questions, one for Eva and one for Seku. Eva, for a fast track program like Sweden's, what types of adaptation might make it more accessible for temporary protection beneficiaries? The question if it's adaptation or legal change, of course.
Well, we have some legal issues to take care of. For instance, they don't have no insurance if they are being in our activities, which is of course a problem, and we're trying to solve that question, because it's very important, of course, that people have security even if they are refugees. So we are working on that issue, and that would be helpful. And then also we have to find out to adapt more of the questions. What is it about in the directive that is the problem? Because there is a difference coming, staying within the directive than to stay as a regular refugee.
Thank you very much. And the second question is for Seku. Does Germany have some facilitated procedures for recognizing qualifications and formal, non-formal skills for third country nationals, including Ukrainians? I'm not sure if you are in a position to answer this question.
Yes, I mean, it's the answer is partially. It depends what you mean, because you have to understand that the recognition of foreign degrees in Germany is occupation specific. So you have occupational associations that are responsible for the whole process. So you can imagine for every job almost it's different. So, and then you have also regional differences because it's organized by federal states. So it's very complex and it's very difficult to understand when you come from abroad, the whole system. And then there's another level of differentiation. It's you have occupations where you are legally obliged to have a certification, like for medical jobs, for example. And then you have occupations where it's optional, so it's more a signal for firms. So let's say a firm receives applications from two candidates. One is German, one is from a foreign country. They both have some credentials. Then the firm wants to know, okay, from the German person, I know what the person learned. I know the curriculum. From the foreign person, I don't know what the person actually has, what skills does the person have. And there the certifications give you a clue, you know, they say, okay, this has been tested by occupational professionals, and they can certify that what the person learned in a country of origin is comparable to what the person in Germany has learned. And here there are some innovations. So there are some new ways to make this, some tests and pilots to make this more smooth and less administrative, to also test practical skills. There are some few pilots, but it's not countrywide. It's very occupation specific, I would say.
Thank you very much. As we are now approaching the end of the webinar, I would like to ask you to briefly list your 3 priorities for fast-tracking the labor market integration of persons coming from Ukraine. So 3 really short bullet points from your side, and maybe I will start with Slawka.
Okay, thank you very much. So I have the 3 ready. So first one is access to high quality, understandable information on what is available and what are the rules. Second one is recognition of qualification fast, because that can really get people on the market. And the third one is activities to prevent abuse, from public authorities. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Matteo?
well, I've already, two of them have already been taken. So I will add only one, which is to organize one-stop shop in cities, which in Milan, we're trying to have a one-stop shop, which doesn't mean to deploy the same answers to any requests, but to have a single place that they are able to deal with multiple issues. So a one-stop shop is a good idea, and we need to connect as a connector, as a funnel that connects to different services in the cities, but is one place where people can go and feel welcomed and to feel accepted. So I will add this to the previous one.
Thank you very much. Birgit, would you like to be next?
Okay, I think I will focus on two points. The one is to offer enough language courses in order to support the people in learning language, the German language as soon as possible and as good as possible. And the second one is the recognition of qualifications to speed up in screening the documents and the diplomas, what have been done in the Ukraine and what is accepted in Austria.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. And let's now move to Eva.
Thank you. Well, the first one, meet up early to identify and validate skills and competencies. They are needed on our labor market. The second one is to secure relevant and available information about labor market and living and working conditions. And the third one is to facilitate language training in particular, so they learn the language and can be more available.
Thank you. And Andrzej?
For me, it's like the regulation. So we have like a lot of professions that are in a way protected, which is some kind of like not necessary today. Second thing is digitalization. So we should give like really some democratic, really like available everywhere contact and some kind of like single point of information for migrants. And the third thing is maybe it's connected with the two previous. It's some kind of it's in a way like decentralization, you know. So to really make it really accessible through digitalization, you know, and really very easy to use without like limits of, you know, queues or making them to go somewhere to you know, apply for PESEL or for some ID.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. And Seko.
Yes, so I agree with most of the points raised before. So I will try to add a few that I would not say are more important, but I think legal status is very important to have security, to know that you can stay for this long, you know, and not have a very short status that you have to renew frequently. Another important thing is, I think, the opportunity to work and improve skills at the same time and not be not fall into financial traps, you know, that you have to work to live and then you don't have time to invest in skills. And the third is, I would say also the same for language, to keep learning language. So provide incentives and also with firms the opportunity to leave some time, you know, after a 10 hours work, you're tired, you cannot learn anymore. So have flexible arrangements, I would say.
Thank you very much for this great final insights. Unfortunately, it's time to wrap up our discussion. What I learned today is that we might have different approaches when it comes to fast tracking or low tracking, but what is crucial and what you actually mentioned, Seku, a moment ago, is how to actually find this golden middle between the desire to work of this group, because this is what we see. These people enter, like in Poland, 400,000 maybe. They are already on the labor market. But at the same time, we should give them access to quality work, to give them chances to improve their qualifications, or actually get their qualifications recognized. So that's, like, I think, a huge challenge for labor market integration policies. So thank you for attending this seminar and your precious time and your insights that you shared with us. If you would like to follow our upcoming webinars, please sign in to Spring platform. You can follow us on Twitter as well. The upcoming webinar will concern housing and accommodation of this group, and it's planned for December. Thank you very, very much again for your time. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.